Silent Hill Homecoming is developed by the American company Double Helix Games.
The game was released in 2008 for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. It was the very first Silent Hill game to be on next-gen consoles with HD graphics. No separate puzzle difficulty. Completely gone are the fixed and wide camera angles with a modern third-person camera in its place. The camera also just feels really sluggish. It's weird to describe, but it never feels fast or precise enough. It's just too floaty. Your top speed just isn't very fast, and it makes traveling take a lot longer than it needs to. The game lacks the quick turnaround button past games have. You'll be swinging the camera all the way around before you can do that. If you try to walk backwards, you don't go very fast. And this especially sucks when you need to bolt in the opposite direction when a horde of monsters are in your way.
A little annoying, this didn't get in the way of actually playing the game.
There are significantly more mandatory battles in Homecoming than previous entries, and only rarely are there reasonable opportunities to actually avoid combat. The melee combat works by locking onto your target, which zooms in the camera behind Alex, and then attacking while you have openings and dodging or blocking when enemies attack. Learning the timing of how and when to dodge attacks is satisfying, and it's enjoyable when you pull it off successfully. The camera position does take some getting used to, and there are some issues with missing attacks.
After getting hit, Alex will be left vulnerable to more attacks for a number of seconds. This makes it hard to dodge, and you'll end up taking hits that really shouldn't have been your fault.
When you're forced to deal with multiple enemies in tight corridors, which does happen at a few points. In these scenarios, it's possible to be completely locked down if you get into a bad position. This does get a bit annoying, but it doesn't happen frequently enough to be a major detriment.
Alex's combat skills is one of the downfalls of Homecoming. Because of this, the game gets a more action-oriented feel to it, which greatly brings down the fear compared to the previous titles.
All the melee weapons have an application in the environment. Every weapon has an upgrade that's hidden throughout the game. These provide some nice damage bonuses to speed up battles. There are firearms, and they are extremely powerful. Alex's ammo storage capacity is low, so it's recommended to use the firearms at fairly regular intervals. Forgetting about them can lead to situations where you're fully stocked on ammo and you come across a box you simply won't be able to carry. It creates a delicate balancing act because by using your firearms, you're likely conserving your healing items by dispatching enemies from a safe distance and not dealing with the melee combat. If you're too frivolous with their use, you can end up in a bad spot where you'll be forced to use melee weapons against some of the more dangerous enemies. So while you should be conservative, you also shouldn't fall into the trap of conserving all your ammo for the next Siam or boss encounter, as you'll likely be stocked full and won't be able to pick up the additional ammo that's scattered around. Using some shotgun ammunition on lesser enemies like Schisms can be worth the expense, simply because if you don't, you'll end up in a situation with tons of ammo and nothing left to use it on. While wandering around Shepherd's Glen, you'll notice a distinct lack of color. Everything has low saturation and it's mostly dull grays, greens, and browns. The low saturation of the real world is contrasted nicely by the other world.
We actually see a real transition to the other world, and it's pretty damn rad. The way reality literally starts crumbling apart and floating away is just really cool.
The walls and floors crumble, revealing the rusted skeletal framework of an industrial complex with specklings of skin and flesh as adornments. The other world is filled with large industrial fans and brilliant glowing oranges which cast ominous shadows. It's a great aesthetical shift. The transitions and trips to the other world are the most enjoyable parts of the game.
The town of Shepherd's Glen looks really convincing. The streets and storefronts are all in shambles, and the thick fog that covers the whole place just fits together perfectly. Homecoming did a great job of laying out a thick and oppressive atmosphere,
which is rather eerie and off-putting and densely oppressive. Yamaoka still did the OST for this one, and he did so good. Foregoing any and all catchy melody and seemingly actually interpreting the gray moody visuals through a very drone-heavy omnipresent soundscape that does wonders to elevate the game's immersion factor. The sound design itself is still pretty good too. Filter-wise, shit also looks neat, as they've taken to using jitter and flicker over just grain, which gives off a really cool effect when paired with the bright red lighting and rusty textures. The big fans, barbed wires, and impossible spaces are all present and accounted for, and used to a similar effect. Literally all of the Otherworld sections are just nothing but rust.
The noise filter in the game is unlike the past, going from video noise to bad video noise with film scratches. The first time we played, our eyes hurt trying to get used to it. Unlike past games, you can't turn it off, which is a real annoyance. Not that it matters anyway, because you can't see anything half the time. We played the game on the maximum brightness and couldn't see much, even with the weak flashlight they give you.
Silent Hill Homecoming's puzzles are quite easy. Most of them are simple and intuitive, solutions being obvious riddles or simply collecting a handful of objects from around the surrounding area and placing them at key locations.
Except for the puzzle at the end, which ramps up the difficulty drastically. It's like a missed friggin' puzzle.
There are some minor QuickTime events present. They're mostly inoffensive and don't occur enough to detract from the experience. Outside of combat, most of the game is spent exploring the derelict town, solving puzzles to open new ways to progress, and finding clues to your next objectives. Save points are reasonably paced, and one is always provided immediately before a boss fight or long puzzle section. Silent Hill Homecoming only has 2 difficulty settings, normal and hard. Not having an easy difficulty may seem off-putting to some players. Regardless of skill level, most should have few issues getting through Homecoming, and it should be considered an easy game to play to completion on normal difficulty. Hard mode can be a nice alternative for those who find normal too easy, but there are no additional incentives to complete it besides one achievement. Outside of the weapon upgrades and serums, there are photographs and drawings to find, but they don't add much to the story and mostly exist to hold some achievements hostage.
Unlike Origins, the levels are a lot smaller, so you're never overwhelmed with a huge amount of space to explore all at once. That's good, because the amount of ground you had to cover in Origins made the game too damn tedious.
You have a continually updating objective marker to help push you forward, and you'll regularly be hitting points of no return. You're provided enough details to soldier on, and it never feels boring or too long-winded. Homecoming does feature 5 endings as well as some extra unlockables. The endings are dictated by 3 choices made throughout the game. These 3 choices occur at the final approximately 2 hours of the game. For the sake of efficiency, it's recommended to keep a set of saves before these choices if you want to experience all the endings, as you can forgo repeating the lengthy beginning and middle of the game multiple times. Each ending provides Alex a new costume to use for New Game, and certain endings provide some additional unlockable weapons. These are purely aesthetic and have no real effect on gameplay. The unlockable weapons are extremely strong. Homecoming does put more emphasis on combat than other games in the series.
Even so, this game is scary enough to make you check over your shoulder every once in a while.
The combat is enjoyable enough to keep you invested, despite some frustration. Homecoming is aping the 2006 movie, which took a lot of its monster inspiration from Silent Hill 2. The bosses are all unique, and have much better designs than any of the standard enemies.
The whole game looks about what you'd expect from a 2008 game. It's really not bad at all, but the character models and animations, outside of Alex and a handful of main characters, really needed some work.
Voice acting is also solid, although not fantastic, but everyone gives a believable performance. Silent Hill Homecoming is a fine choice for fans of survival horror, but it also has some problems that really help to turn off newcomers. I'd definitely say it's worth a try.
If you keep an open mind and think of it rightfully as a side story, even veterans can find some enjoyment.
Josh! Josh! Don't let me fall!
Bad dream?
All he looks for is me.
Where's Josh?
Oh, he's gone. Everyone's gone.
I am the key. I hold the answers. I am the answer.